Hey, welcome to Hype Sessions, the political commentary show for herbalhype.com. I am Jasmine, your host, and today we have with us a graduating economics major from the DMV, Mr. Dallas Paul. How you doing today, Mr. Paul?
I'm doing great. How about you, Jasmine?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Oh, no problem.
Thank you. So we heard that you will be talking about the debt ceiling today,
Yeah, that's
correct?
right.
Okay, great. So what are your opinions on this issue?
Okay, well, first I'm just going to start off talking about what the debt ceiling is. And the debt ceiling is the legal amount of debt that Congress is allowed to incur at any given time. So that's basically the amount of money that we're allowed to borrow at any point in time. And so what happened was we were reaching the limit of that ceiling. We were about to approach upon the number that they gave that said, this is the maximum amount of debt you can incur. And there was a big debate whether we should extend it or not to extend it.
Mm-hmm. And what determines extending it or not extending it? Are there different limitations or guides and rules and regulations?
It's really just a vote in Congress, and generally it's extended every time that the president asks for it. It's extended, but there was a situation this time with a lot of fundamentalists, especially junior senators and representatives, specifically the Tea Party, who were making a big ruckus over something which was usually a pretty straightforward deal. There's usually not a ifs and buts about it. And so what had happened was there was a vote to raise the debt ceiling, which did pass at a 269 to 161 vote. And so it did pass, but it called for a couple of stipulations with that. One of those being that the debt ceiling would increase by $2.4 trillion immediately, and an increase of $400 billion to an additional $500 billion if Obama wanted it. And of course, that could be vetoed by the Congress with a 2/3 vote.
Okay, so for you said if the president did want it, what would be the factors that would determine if he did or did not?
Okay, it mostly be how fast the economy is growing, or how fast someone maybe was calling in the debts that we have. So we borrowed a lot of money for infrastructure and for basic running of the government. And so if someone called in on those debts, like say maybe the Saudi Arabians or the Chinese government, whoever else we lent treasury bonds to, if they called that in, then we would definitely need to be able to get some more cash somewhere to pay those debts. Otherwise, we might be fighting.
Right.
Okay.
Don't want that.
Of course not. Of course not. So the bill that was passed also called for a special committee of 12 persons, both from the House and the Senate, to, I guess, evaluate and identify areas where spending could be cut in certain fields, industries, where government spending can be cut. It also made provisions for the House and the Senate to vote on a mandatory, what they call a fair budget bill, which is basically that the government has to operate on a balanced budget, where they're taking in about as much as they're spending.
So how was it beforehand, before this bill was passed?
Before, there was no mandatory agreement or anything that there had to be a balanced budget. It was just, they generally tried to keep it within a balanced budget, so it's kind of like an unwritten law. Now they're trying to make this in stone because it was a big issue. And I think a lot of people are misunderstanding what the deficit budget really is that, well, we make money off of debt, and capitalist societies have always made money off of debt. This is how we make debt. We borrow money from someone, which is our debt, and invest in somewhere, and we're able to pay back our debts. And this is kind of, the basic premise of inflation, how inflation works, and of how the economy is growing. And so we have some people who came in who were really, angered up or fired up about us being in debt. And they look at this gross number and people say, oh, 6.5 trillion or whatever. And that number really doesn't have any significance. It's the percentage of debt that we're in. Are we 50% of our GDP, 80% of our GDP? And compared to world standards, we're actually doing fairly well. Countries like Italy and France have 90 to 110% of the amount of money that they bring in a given year. They have to pay back to their debt. And so for us to be, I think we're around 70%. It sounds like a high number, but relatively speaking, it's not that bad of a number. And so another thing I guess, with these fundamentalists, specifically I'm talking about the Tea Party when I say fundamentalists, is that they came in under the premise that we needed to operate like a business in a sense. And the government is a business and you can operate like that, but there's also other stipulations that kind of counteract the business methodology, if you will. And one of those being is we are the central source, the U.S. Treasury, the Federal Reserve, for maintaining credit limits, lines, interest rates in the country. And so there's some things that a business can do that the government can't do simply because of the scale that it's on. I tell people all the time, slashing government spending in a time of recession it seems like a good idea, but it's counterintuitive, because when you decrease the money supply, you're actually increasing the interest rate on that money, or the money is devaluating because you're slashing the spending, and so there's less money supply to go around. And like I was saying, all capitalist systems from the beginning of time, especially almost a purely capitalist system like ourselves, works on the premise of debt. We incur debt to make more money. And the fact that President Bush and previous presidents have asked for, I think President Bush asked for 14 times the debt ceiling to be increased, and every single time it was increased. Now that it's not, or there was a problem with it where they were saying, okay, we're not going to increase it off you asking, kind of begs the question, where do we stand as Americans? And it kind of, a lot of people like to say because it's taboo, but where does it stand as a black president, and maybe the idea that you're hindering his performance simply to be hindering his performance, not because you have any particular reason for doing so. So those are a couple things to keep in mind when people are talking about the debt ceiling. Also, the Tea Party is, they represent a group of people who don't necessarily live in the city, more like a rural, suburban type area. And with these general areas, especially in the rural communities, currency is based on what we call hard currency: gold, silver, crop, cows, so tradable goods. Whereas in the city, currency is based on what we call soft currency, which is the dollar bill, the faith in the government to provide us with the amount of gold, silver, or cow that one single dollar is worth. And so because their currency, even though we have the same currencies, I don't want to get it confused, but they have a more stable local economic environment with their hard currency. They're willing to risk kind of the financial stability of the country, because if we collapsed and we weren't able to pay our debts, we weren't able to pay our federal employees, life would kind of go on, not as usual, but it would pretty much go on for them untainted, whereas people in the cities would feel it a lot harder because there's not that strong local currency or local economy based on hard currency. So, if everyone, for example, in Alexandria, Virginia, where I'm from, they work for the Pentagon, the State Department, wherever, the Treasury Bureau. If all of them got laid off, now they can't buy food from the grocery stores, the grocery man can't buy food from the movie theater, and the movie theater guy, and so it's a trickle-down effect where people aren't being able to purchase goods because a large section of some people were unemployed or were unable to be paid. Whereas if you're out in the rural community and your industry is farming or picking or cropping, you could trade. Okay, I'll give you 3 cows for 4 bushels of corn or however it may be, and you're kind of still operating. Whereas, within that local economy, within that local market. Whereas we would kind of be at more of a disadvantage. So I think that's one major reason why they were able to push so adamantly about not raising the debt ceiling, knowing full well. No, I can't say that because I don't know if they knew full well the consequences of not raising the debt ceiling. They acted as if they didn't, but being in the position that they were, I would assume that they knew if you didn't raise the debt ceiling, millions of people would be laid off, our debts would not be able to be paid, government services like trash companies, waste development lands, water, all these state-run agencies that get money from federal stimulus would be unable to operate. So in effect, it would shut down the country, at least in major cities.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you for having us. We thank you for cut and paste. Hold on. And we'd like to thank you, Mr. Dallas Paul, for coming on the show today. We really appreciate your intelligence and your knowledge. just to show what our future is going to be like.
Yeah, that's real.
Great start, great start. All right, and we'd definitely like to give a shout out to our exceptional student of the month, Mr. Mike Latson, who graduated in 2.5 years with the highest GPA in SBI.
Go ahead, Mike.
Florida A&M. That'll do it to you. And definitely shout out to all the freshmen coming in. We definitely hope that you have a great time here at Florida A&M. Watch out for financial. I'm just playing.
Shout out to the troops.
All right. See you next hype
Shout out to
session.
8 Second.